Being the host of a multiplicity of different religions, California creates a space for people to interact with and be exposed to a wide array of religious views. This is the role that California religions have played in my life. Like most good stories, it all starts when I was a baby. Well, on second thought, it starts before then. Like most good stories from my parents, it starts with Catholic school. My mom, the child of an aspiring nun from Illinois, who was later excommunicated from the church because of an uncovered divorce from her early 20s, was raised in a strict Catholic school that had a lingering distaste for her whole family. Needless to say, she held on to some anger about religion. My dad was a reckless delinquent from Houston with ample familiarity to a hearty Catholic school knuckle beating. A ruler to the knuckles can only do so much good for a kid and left my dad wanting nothing to do with any religion. Then my parents did what parents do and enter me, a kid with no preconceived notions and a perfect recipe for religious inquisitiveness. Religion of any sort wasn't talked of much growing up. It wasn't as if it was untouchable. It was just such a non-issue that it was never thought of. Some families watch American Idol together on Monday nights, and some families go to church together on Sunday mornings. Fast forward to the end of middle school where I, by chance, ended up at a Christian camp in the Santa Cruz Mountains. At this camp, I was first introduced to Christianity by seeing people who seemed to be living with more passion, more depth, and more life than I'd ever experienced, and I was extremely drawn to that. While I wouldn't have dared to call it religion, then this created a drastic shift in the way that I viewed my life, and as a result, caused religious thought, practices, and questions to become one of the governing forces of my life. I went home from that camp and bought a Bible, and not knowing where to read, began to open up to random pages. I came across teachings of Jesus about loving and caring for others above yourself, and quite honestly was blown away that this is what the Christian religion was rooted in. Not the judgment and hate that I'd previously thought, but something altogether different. I began to search on Wikipedia and explore different religious practices, and it seemed that this notion of loving and caring for others was at the center of many religious traditions. Then, as I go through high school, my religious views continue to be shaped through conversations with three of my best friends, an atheist, a Catholic, and a Mormon. Everywhere we went, the conversation would always come back to philosophical and religious questions, where we would discuss and argue our different viewpoints, simultaneously trying to understand and convince each other. It became that pursuing truth and reality through philosophical and religious questions with my friends was my religion. As I entered into college, I stumbled upon a dorm Bible study on my way home from the gym and was appalled that there were other people having these types of conversations. While there was a bit of a different crowd, and that it was almost all Christians, we were still having these conversations about God and reality. I began to relentlessly read and study this Bible that I had bought back in high school. That summer after my freshman year, I began to read a handful of different evangelical Christian lifestyle books that radically shifted the way that I viewed the world and how I interacted with people. And I decided that I no longer wanted philosophical and metaphysical pursuits to be my religion, but I wanted to view those questions through the lens of Christianity, and I became a Christian. At that time, I didn't know that there were other forms of Christianity, but the particular flavor of Christianity that I was stepping into was enough to spark my interests. During my second year of college, I joined a ministry known as Young Life, which, as it seems, is a whole other branch of evangelical Christianity in itself. And my religious views became informed by evangelical cultural ideals, as I grew into a predominantly Christian community for the first time in my life. That summer, I worked at the same Christian summer camp that had introduced me to the religion years prior. There, I was once again blown away by the fullness of life that seemed to permeate from the many people there, a fullness that I still didn't seem to have, even after deciding to become a part of the Christian religion. At that camp, I was introduced to a new array of different Christian views and began to realize that there's more than just the flavor of evangelical Christianity that I had experienced at Cal Poly. My views of Christianity once again began to transform as I lived in a community saturated with people who seemed to be tapping into more depth, passion, and life than I had ever known. From working there, I emerged a friendship with a guy who was studying philosophy and religious studies. This created space for those same types of conversations I was so drawn to in high school. I was introduced to different authors, thinkers, and scholars of Christian theology and philosophy, and became fascinated with this world of Christianity that I had never before known. I became increasingly interested in authors with different views of faith and theology. With this newfound interest in different waves of thought, my views differed drastically from the Cal Poly Christianity I had previously known. I then became involved with the Front Porch, a ministry on campus focused on creating a space for a community of people with different religions and worldviews to address questions about religion. Joel Drankpole, the director, became a prominent figure in my life, and began again introducing me to different waves of theological thought. I started studying basics of some of the Hebrew language and first century Jewish culture in order to better understand this Bible that I had been reading. I began listening to lectures by the biblical cultural scholar Ray Vander Laan and became wildly interested in mysticism. I find myself now in the middle of this dynamic religious growth, with radically different religious views than I did last year, let alone at the beginning of college. I find my current religious views informed greatly by the 20th century Jewish philosopher of religion and professor of mysticism, Abraham Joshua Heschel, and other authors of the like, and studying the life and teachings of Jesus in cultural context to the best of my ability. I find myself more than ever identifying as a Christian, as opposed to solely a follower of Christ. And though my religious views have been anything but steady, my interest in religion and the role that it plays in my life has remained one of the driving forces in shaping who I am today and will continue to do so.